Now again, we are back. This is an issue for environment. Environment forms a very important part of our prelims exam. ठीक है, around like 20 to 25% of the exam, the questions are from environment section. Moreover, in the recent years we have observed a trend कि environment के section में the questions from current affairs and the institutions are repeatedly coming. ठीक है, तो whatever like green climate fund, okay, or any kind of such initiative that has been in news, we have to focus on it, ठीक है. And industrial decarbonization initiative, this is an initiative led by India and UK. India and UK have launched this industrial decarbonization initiative. Now this initiative has been launched under the aegis of clean environment Ministerial. ठीक है. Now first of all we try to understand what is decarbonization and what is the role of Paris Climate Deal, and why is Paris Climate Deal not sufficient for this and why is it not sufficient, and why we need decarbonization instead of only having a Paris Deal that talks about the reduction in the emissions. Okay, so deep decarbonization is switching permanently. ठीक है, it is not an ad hoc measure. ठीक है, it is not only about the mitigating the effects of the carbon emissions. It is rather an approach that shifts the whole the whole thing to a permanent reduction of carbon. ठीक है, carbon emissions को permanently reduce कर दिया जाए, and an environment or a society which is free of these carbon emissions and the technologies that are not dependent on carbon emissions. That is called decarbonization. मतलब a society which is free from carbon emissions. Okay. The Paris Climate Deal sets ambitious targets. Decarbonization pathway, deep decarbonization pathways provide a realistic path to attaining it. Now there is a very beautiful kind of curve we can see here. This was prepared by IPCC, है ना, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. तो हिस्टोरिकल इमिशंस आप यहाँ तक देखेंगे 2020. So very important thing is कि first of all you need to make a case as to why do we need deep decarbonization. Okay, so we almost all the time know that, all the time talk about the fact कि 1.5 degree Celsius temperature से हमें कम रखना है. ठीक है, and moreover our aim should be to reduce it, keeping it the rise in temperature well below 2 degrees Celsius. That was the condition of Paris Climate Deal. पेरिस क्लाइमेट के डील के अंडर में ये दो इंपॉर्टेंट चीजें थी. ठीक है, पहला तो इंपॉर्टेंट चीज ये था कि ट्राई टू लिमिट द राइज ऑफ टेम्परेचर बाय 1.5 डिग्री सेल्सियस ऑफ प्री इंडस्ट्रियल लेवल्स. प्री इंडस्ट्रियल लेवल्स मतलब 1600s. ठीक है, इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन के पहले का जो टेम्परेचर था अर्थ का, उस टेम्परेचर के रिस्पेक्ट में 1.5 डिग्री से ज्यादा रेज नहीं होने देना है अर्थ का टेम्परेचर. दैट इज द पेरिस क्लाइमेट डील. ये तो पॉइंट नंबर 1 है. सेकेंड पॉइंट इज कि एंड वी हैव टू कीप दिस राइज वेल बिलो 2 डिग्री सेल्सियस. द फर्स्ट वन इज लिमिटिंग वन, द सेकेंड वन इज ऑल एनकम्पासिंग टाइप. ठीक है, पहले तो 1.5 डिग्री प्री इंडस्ट्रियल लेवल से ऊपर जाने नहीं देना, एंड द होल एम इज that we have to at any cost limit it below 2 degree Celsius of the pre-industrial levels. ठीक है, और ये 1.5 डिग्री सेल्सियस और 2 डिग्री सेल्सियस का फेनोमेना कहाँ से आया? लाइक why not 3 डिग्री सेल्सियस, है ना? तो this came from this simulation. This is the figure that gives us the report or the result that if we want to continue with the sustainable development of the planet, or even the development of the planet, or even the survival of the planet, then we will have to go through which path we have to choose. ठीक है, this was a computer simulation based on different kind of temperatures, based on different kind of emissions that will lead to a certain kind of temperature of the earth. मतलब अगर इतना emission होगा तो उसके रिस्पेक्ट में टेम्परेचर राइज कितना होगा इन द सिंपल टर्म्स। तो अगर 1850 और 1900 के रिलेशन में, ओके, द फर्स्ट वन इज इफ द कार्बन एमिशंस आर ग्रेटर देन 1000 पार्ट पर मिलियन ppm, ठीक है, तो द टेम्परेचर राइज विल बी 3.2 डिग्री टू 5.4 डिग्री सेल्सियस एज कंपेयर टू 1850s to 1900, okay. Similarly, only one path was found sustainable. Only one path was found sustainable. This path, the blue line, the one which is being marked red now, it shows that RCP 2.6. If the emissions are limited within 430 to 480 part per million, if the emissions are restricted to 430 to 480 parts per million, then only will be able to keep the rise of temperature well below 2 degrees Celsius. Are we on that path? No. We are already tracing this path. And the path we are on right now, with the intended nationally determined contribution of the countries, our temperature, the temperature of Earth by 2100 is going to rise by 3 degrees Celsius. And that is a very scary thing, okay. So to limit these things, okay, Paris Climate Deal was enacted, okay, and now it has also come into force from 2020 onwards. India has also submitted its INDCs. So what is now the requirement of deep decarbonization? Why do we need it? Okay. The very important thing is कि the whole concept is industrial decarbonization. ठीक है, अगर industries का decarbonization हो जाए, because industries are the major emitter, that also the heavy industries like steel and cement, because steel and cement need very high temperatures, ठीक है, कैल्शियम और कैल्शियम से जब सीमेंट बनता है तो that is a very high temperature process, okay. Similarly, production of steel also, low carbon steel भी उसमें चारकोल ऐड करके आयरन में और स्टील प्रोड्यूस किया जाता है, and that is also very high energy process. अब इस हाई एनर्जी प्रोसेस को कंटिन्यू करने के लिए कोल इज द प्राइमरी सोर्स ऑफ एनर्जी, ठीक है। इतने टेम्परेचर कहां से मेंटेन करेंगे? कोल बर्न करके, बिकॉज कोल इज चीप, ओके। तो कॉस्ट रिड्यूस करने के लिए हम क्या करते हैं? कोल यूज करते हैं। नाउ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज कि व्हाई do we need industrial decarbonization? The first one is कि emission from production of 5 basic industrial materials like steel, cement, plastic, paper and aluminium is around 20% of the global carbon dioxide emission. मतलब ये 4-5 components के production में ही 20% of the global carbon emissions हो जाते हैं। Largest emitter of carbon is power sector, okay. Second one is steel, third one is cement, ठीक है। Research by IPCC predicts that if developing countries expand their infrastructure, because developing countries are now in the phase of expansion. Developed countries have already made their infrastructure and they are already they are not investing a lot in their infrastructure. But countries like China, India, Bangladesh, the developing countries, they are now requiring to have a huge infrastructure. और infrastructure build करने के लिए steel and iron are the most, steel and cement are the most important factors. अब इनका प्रोडक्शन बहुत ज़्यादा होगा, है ना, तो कार्बन एमिशन बहुत ज़्यादा होगा, ओके। बट डेवलपमेंट और ग्रोथ दोनों के बीच में एक यहाँ पे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है। तो if the IPCC report predicts that if the developing countries are going to expand their expenditure infrastructure, then by 2050 the 470 billion tons of carbon dioxide will be emitted, okay. And since more than 80%, very important thing is कि how governments can be a very important how governments can play a very important role in this industrial decarbonization, not only through implementation of policies, not only through bringing down the emission levels and all, but by incentivizing the production of green technologies. Because steel और cement का जो major consumption है, that is by government in making public infrastructure like bridges, roads, है ना, tunnels, metros, buildings. तो major consumer of steel and aluminium and cement वो है वो गवर्नमेंट्स हैं. इफ गवर्नमेंट इंसेंटिवाइज, इफ गवर्नमेंट्स ऐसी पॉलिसीज लाना शुरू कर दें कि अगर आपका सीमेंट प्रोडक्शन का कार्बन फुटप्रिंट इतना है तो वी विल परचेज फ्रॉम यू, तो दीज कंपनीज विल ऑटोमेटिकली बी फोर्स टू शिफ्ट ऑन द प्रोसेस जहां पे वो अपना कार्बन एमिशन को रिड्यूस कर पाए. ठीक है. तो if 80% of the cement and 90% of steel is produced in less than this is another important point, that 80% of steel and 90% of cement, okay, I transpose them. I think 80% of cement and 90% of steel is being produced in 20 countries, in less than 20 countries. Okay, that means these countries, and moreover, very importantly, these countries are the developing countries. That means the infrastructural demands, the demand of infrastructure and the need of infrastructure in developing countries is going to rise, है ना. अब इन countries को अपने infrastructure को need को तो खत्म कर नहीं सकते, है ना. So they will have to invest more into green technologies. And what developed countries can do is they can incentivize, they can help these developing countries in making their infrastructure green by putting in funds to the developing countries, so that these developing countries can switch to the greener methods of cement production, steel production, aluminum production, plastic production. Okay, now you understand that why we need industrial decarbonization. The first point is that industries are the major source of carbon या carbon emissions. The second one is that governments are the major consumers of the steel and cement ऐसी जो materials हैं, industrial materials. The third one is कि जो developing countries हैं उनकी infrastructure demands और needs अभी rise होने वाली हैं, तो they cannot hamper their development, है ना. तो उनके development को sustainable maintain रखने के लिए जो rich countries हैं they should compensate these countries, because these countries already lack the necessary expertise in green infrastructure या green technologies. Okay, तो यहाँ पे coordination की जरूरत है. Now, industry is responsible for 1/3 of the global greenhouse gas emissions. You can see, industry is 33% of the global gas house emissions, buildings construction में 24%, transport 18%, agricultural land 17%, and other is 8%. Okay, that means, and moreover, the top 3 industries accounting for over 55% of industrial carbon emission are iron and steel, chemical, cement. Okay. Now the second infographic that has been presented here is कि these are the industries with their greenhouse gas emissions. ठीक है, यहाँ पे iron and steel सबसे टॉप पे है, chemicals and plastic, फिर cement, फिर aluminium, refining, machinery, pulp paper. मतलब heavy industries जो हैं they are the major sources of pollution. Okay, इसीलिए we need to decarbonize these heavy industries if we really need to, if we are really trying to achieve the Paris climate deal के जो goals हैं. Okay, because we are already on the part of 3%. By the current standards, we are going to end up with the rise of 3%, 3 degrees Celsius in the temperature of the earth. Now about this India and UK initiative, that the industrial deep decarbonization initiative that India and UK have started under the joint leadership of India and UK. This initiative will try to work with the governments across the world so that these governments may switch to the greener technologies. Okay, India and UK are the head, Germany, Canada and UAE are the current members. More members are coming, of course, to join. UNIDO is a United Nations institute. Okay, it is a United Nations organization, will work with the governments. Okay, matlab this whole thing will be this whole initiative will be coordinated by UNIDO. Now, what is the implementation process? IDDI means Industrial Deep Decarbonization Initiative. Okay, it works in the 3 modes. The first one is standardize the carbon assessment, because all the countries are having different frameworks or different parameters for assessment of the carbon emission. ठीक है, जिसकी वजह से बहुत सारी countries are under reporting, है ना, and that is a major problem. So तो यूनिफॉर्म, अगर एक यूनिफॉर्म स्टैंडर्ड डेवलप कर लें टू assess the carbon emission, so that will be very helpful. So IDDI will do this. First one is standardized carbon assessment. The second one will be establish ambitious targets for reduction of emissions, and the third one will be incentivize investment into low carbon technologies. Low carbon technologies में incentivize कैसे कर सकती हैं? Governments are the major procurer of heavy industry goods like steel and cement. तो अगर गवर्नमेंट्स उसमें ये क्लॉज लगा दें कि इफ यू आर प्रोड्यूसिंग योर सीमेंट और स्टील थ्रू दिस प्रोसेस that is environment friendly and has a lower carbon footprint, then only we are going to purchase from you. Then these companies will be forced to switch to a greener option. Okay, the first one is standardization of assessment, the second one is setting higher targets, the third one is like incentivizing the production of these steel and cement through greener technologies. Okay, Clean Energy Ministerial. This whole initiative has been taken under the aegis of Clean Energy Ministerial. Clean Energy Ministerial is a voluntary organization. It is a bottom up and government owned. It is not an NGO. It is not an NGO. It is a government owned forum where people and researchers and governments and academia and industry come together and they share their insights and they share their knowledge. They develop networks, develop partnerships to work towards a clean energy. Okay? It has three organs. The first one is ministerial, the second one is work program, and the third one is secretariat. The secretariat is under the IEA. Okay, International Energy Agency के headquarters में इसका secretariat है. Okay. पॉसिबल पाथवे का मतलब क्या होता है? रास्ता, कि किस रास्ते के थ्रू अपना हम कार्बन एमिशन को रिड्यूस करें. तो फर्स्ट वन इज क्लियर रोड मैप सेक्टर फॉर इंडिया. दीज आर काइंड ऑफ रिकमेंडेशंस. द फर्स्ट वन इज क्लियर रोड मैप विद सेक्टर स्पेसिफिक टारगेट्स. अगर हम हर सेक्टर को स्पेसिफिक टारगेट्स प्रोवाइड कर दें तो दे विल बी एबल टू अचीव इट, है ना. तो प्रॉपरली वहां पे क्लियरली डिफाइंड गोल एग्जिस्ट करता है ना. एक्सपेंडिंग द डीकार्बनाइजेशन अम्ब्रेला and by including MSMEs, smaller industries को भी उसमें include किया जाए, क्योंकि smaller industries are also like major polluters. Technology transfer from richer countries, developed countries to the developing countries, and promoting circular economy of recycle, reuse and then again refurbish. इस वाली जो टेक्नोलॉजी है 3R टेक्नोलॉजी को यूज करके हम सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी, है ना. You don't have to discard everything out that has been worn out. You put it to some other use. Now that was all for clean. That was all for this IDDI, Industrial Decarbonization Initiative. If you have any questions, kindly put them in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to take them.